Greetings, Captains. Gunship here. I'm going to talk to you today about something that we as a clan or squadron have been talking about for a while, and that is the possibility of creating some sort of map where you could use both tanks, ships and planes all in one big battle. And not just a battle that lasts 5 or 10 minutes, more sort of the enduring confrontation type. So with that in mind, let me present what we have worked on. Please don't take everything as the gospel or the absolute truth. Everything is up for adjustment, changes and so on, and the map is just a best effort made in PowerPoint, as I'm not a graphical designer at all, but I'm sure you put a few guiding graphical specialists on it, I'm sure they could make it a very good map. So without further ado, here is the map, and it looks a bit much to start off with, and you will immediately be drawn to various things on the map. So let's get started. The idea here is that you don't actually spawn in tanks to start off with. The main idea is here you first have to launch an air attack or a bombardment from the sea to basically hammer down the AI defenses. You also have to capture a zone, which is down near the bottom of the map. There's one for each side, and when that is captured, that will allow you to spawn tanks. Hopefully at that time the AI defenses on the shoreline should be diminished and you can then spawn tanks with a view to go and take the main objective, which is in the middle of the island. But that's not the only way to get some tanks onto the peninsula. You can also send in boats, sort of tier 1 and tier 2 ships, into the shallow waters at the south of the island to capture a control point there, and when you hold it, will allow you to spawn tanks to the south, giving you a different tactical advantage, or maybe that's the way to go in the very start of the battle. This area will be heavily contested, of course, and as you can see, it has a number of islands spread out around it. It should be hard, but not impossible, for bigger boats like destroyers and cruisers to provide some assistance into the area, but limited. It is mainly for tier 1 and 2 boats to fight it out. You may now also have wondered about the gradient lines. The idea here being that while the tanks are fairly naked on the beach, as soon as they drive inland, they are no longer able to be shelled directly from cruisers and destroyers. That's not to say that a spotter plane couldn't be used, and there might be a way for landing some shells from some kind of sea bombardment inland. Of course, tanks are still vulnerable to air attacks, and so they might have to spawn some anti-air or rely on their own planes to come and help them on the ground. As you probably can see from now, this gives many different tactical scenarios. If you overcommit on your ships, you may lose out of not having enough tanks or enough planes, and vice versa. If you don't have the ships, then you could run the risk that the enemy fleet get to your capture point down the bottom, and therefore stops you from spawning tanks, and then you kind of have to go and clear that out before you can continue. Now the middle capture point could just be one capture point, and it should take a while to capture it. It could be an airfield, for example. Another option could be to have some kind of domination style map where you have to take 3 or maybe even 5 points. It is quite a big map for tanks to drive around on. It's roughly 10 kilometers wide and about 15 kilometers from north to south. And that's substantially larger than a large ground forces map, which I believe is more like 6 times 6 kilometers at the moment. But it's done in order to make it work for the ships as well, for the planes to have to actually fly some distance before they get into battle. Remember, this is for enduring confrontation, not a 5 minutes rush to capture and you are done type map. So I hope that that is useful. I will post it in the sort of ideas section on the forum, the suggestions place for where they have maps and that kind of stuff. And I will put the link to that in the description below. So, as I said to start off with, it's not cast in stone, but I really think that War Thunder needs to benefit from the fact that they do have air, sea, and ground forces in the game and use them all together. It will sort of give 3 dimension to a battle using different tanks, planes, and ships. So thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.